Hey guys, I'm Andrew McComb and welcome to Web3 TV. In today's video, I'm with Rami James from Ultra.io and we're going to find out what the Metaverse is and the ideal version of the Metaverse. But before we do, make sure you register to watch every episode of Web3 TV here, where we share inspiring stories of all things Web3, making a difference to the world. All sorted? Okay, let's go. Guys, we've got a bonus interview for you today with Rami James from Ultra. We were talking about blockchain gaming and we started to, breach on the concept of the metaverse. First of all, Rami, welcome back.
Nice to be here.
Rami, the metaverse, for starters, what is it? And then what I want to ask you based on your blockchain gaming is what is the ideal metaverse?
Well, the metaverse as it stands today is, I think, very much co-opted by like Meta, like the company Meta, and their vision from like a VR, AR perspective. But like their intent here is to like be the place where people go so that they can like control where the data flows, right? Because like they're interested in advertising, they're interested in advertising in a 3D space. But that's not what I think of as the metaverse. So what is the metaverse, right? Like that's the obvious next question. And my answer is always the metaverse is you. So the metaverse is like your digital version that you control that goes from one place, one application to another. So it's your digital identity and your history, like the stuff that you've done in the past, and the digital assets that are associated with you. Like when you talk about like who are you is sometimes like what you've done in the past, but it's also like the house that you live in and like the junk that you've collected over time and like the art that you've made and like it's like you, it's who you are, right? So the metaverse is a bunch of you, like us together, that are living together in a digital space.
All right, so let's elaborate on that in relation to blockchain gaming and what is the ideal scenario for gamers in the metaverse or
So
gaming?
my ideal scenario is kind of like a constellation of games where like you connect into this metaverse and there's like a story that has been happening and you've experienced parts of the story and you've collected like stuff in the story through like stuff that you've done. It's like your account, it's like your player, like those are like NFTs. They're provably yours, right? Like through cryptographic means they're you. And like the blockchain is the state. It's like what it is now, it's what it was, it's like the history of it. And like you have all of these different games which are built not necessarily by one party. It could be like multiple different companies, multiple different people, lots of artists that are like pouring their like soul, their life, their love like into this metaverse. And it's something that like we get to experience. And it could be like through 3D, it could be through VR, it could be AR, it could be 2D games, it could be text-based games. Like how you access the metaverse is it's a client issue, but like when you're talking about what the metaverse is, it's that thing that you access.
So what I'm hearing there is it's not only about you, it's also about the people who are in it with you and the whole, I guess, the community around it as well, and making sure that many games are involved, many players are involved, many developers are involved, and it's forming its own community and essentially like its own country in a way, but it's in a virtual world.
I think a country is a really valid metaphor for it because like inside a country, you have like a bunch of different cities. They're all different. They all have their personalities. You have a lot of different buildings, like stuff that you can do in those different buildings. Some people live in one, some people live in the other. Sometimes their paths never cross. Sometimes, like you do stuff with friends in another city. I mean, like there's a lot of valid metaphors there.
I just also hear a lot of hard work trying to be the smart brains developer behind it. It must take an immense amount of intelligence to make that a reality in the years to come.
I think it takes a lot of planning. I think that's what it really takes. Because when you're talking about like building out um, technology which makes that stuff possible, there are a lot of like core concepts which have to be finalized. So, for example, when you're talking about digital identity, and that's actually a problem that I've worked on in the past, it is no small thing. So, when you talk about like a digital identity, there's some interesting facets of it which are beyond just like your facts, like your name, your age, like how tall or short you are in my case. And when you talk about like an identity, it's also reputation, and reputation can also be implemented on chain, like on a blockchain network, as something which can be queried by people and has real meaning. Because like if you talk about bad actors within, for example, the metaverse, what that actually means is they've done bad stuff in the past, and people were like, they did this bad thing, and that's something that like we as a community can build together. But doing that in a way which is not easily gamed, like not something that like you can like mess with other people with, is really hard to do. And I think that like when you talk about like metaverses, then it's way more important to be talking about like how do we solve digital identity and reputation than it is VR and AR, because frankly, it's not that interesting from like a conceptual level.
Mm. Well, I think like it has the potential to be quite dangerous, doesn't it? If you can assume a digital identity or an avatar of someone who you're not, call it your dark side, and you can play in this metaverse with other actors who maybe not the real people either, call them Tinder profiles. So everyone's putting up their fake profile, for example. To me, morally and ethically, it brings in a lot too, doesn't it, as far as what might actually happen in there. But as you're saying, if it's like using the blockchain to track that reputation, I guess, would you say that people aren't going to engage with those people very soon if they've done pretty things that are, well, a lot of things that are pretty dodgy, probably for one of a better
Well,
word?
there has to be weighting, right? Like some things are worse than others. There has to be like degradation of historical occurrences over time. Like if you did a bad thing a week ago, that's worse than if you did a bad thing 5 years ago, right? It's not the same, depending on the thing, but like, generally it's not the same. So like whatever you're building has to take those kinds of things into account, because like what you're actually doing is after the fact that you're using it in like player matching algorithms, for example. So if you have a game and like you set it to like only play with people with a reputation above, X,
Mm,
then that reputation of X should be calculated on a bunch of different factors, things like didn't do bad thing in the last couple of weeks, generally does nice things, generally plays the way that you expect them to play. I mean, like there's a lot of like complexity there which needs to be, I think, planned for.
exactly. And that takes some serious planning, right? Because you're literally, like, the way I see the metaverse potentially is it's recreating planet Earth in a virtual
Yeah.
sense. And
Yeah.
planet Earth took thousands of years to get to where we are right now, and had planning along the way, but it didn't have planning at the start, did it? It was an
Right.
evolution process.
Right.
So for us to say reduce thousands of years into a couple of years planning to then start building it out is just, is it even possible? And if it is, it's, to me, that's just profound, right? The amount of
It
brain
is
power.
profound, and I think that like when people look at the blockchain space and like sometimes they feel like it moves too slowly. Like, why haven't we built all this stuff already? We've been working on it for like 10 plus years, 12 years, whatever it is. And the fact is that like a lot of the problem space is unexplored. Like people have never tried to do this stuff before. Um, they start, going down the path trying to, solve the problems, and like they realize that it's hugely complex, that there's a lot of potential negative impact for people. Like you were saying, like if you have a digital identity, then there's a potential to have your digital identity stolen. And then like what is the impact on you? What is the potential impact for those around you? How do you restore it? Like those are really hard problems that need to be solved before they're deployed to, the mainstream audience.
And they're struggling with that in the real world at the moment, aren't they? If someone has their
Sure.
identity
Sure.
theft, it's hard enough to solve, let alone in the metaverse.
Mm.
Very interesting conversation. I'm sure, Rami, we could talk about this forever, right? Because it's a philosophical conversation. It has psychological conversation, emotional, cultural. There's so much to it because, as we said, we're literally recreating planet Earth in a virtual world. So I'm sure we'll have a lot more to say, mate, over the next few years and to see whether it does or it doesn't evolve. But as always, mate, really appreciate you coming on the show, sharing your wisdom, your insights, your passion, and your purpose for all things Web3. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Well, there it is, guys. I hope you enjoyed this Web3 TV episode. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments below. And remember, if you'd like to watch every episode of Web3 TV, visit the link below or subscribe to our channel. And remember to hit the bell icon so that we can notify you every time a new episode is released. I'm Andrew McComb, and I look forward to sharing more inspiring Web3 TV episodes, making a difference to the world. I'll see you soon.